But we also know, being in this game a long time, that this is also part of seasons. These are different segments that you get, unfortunately into, and our patch is happening right in the front end, and that's not to dismiss it. But we are disappointed clearly at where we currently stand, but we know better days are ahead.
What troubles you the most about what you've seen to start the season?
I mean, our record, first and foremost, obviously offense is currently, a prime target for what ails us, because it's something that's a strength of ours. And it will be a strength of ours, but it's currently not a strength of ours. And that's obviously making other aspects of the roster that aren't as, something that we rely as heavily on. It's magnifying those deficiencies when we're not scoring like we're capable of. So the record, first and foremost, individual below average performances, those will get corrected, we believe, over time. We trust our players, we trust our process. But the record obviously is something that we're better than, and we just obviously have to, correct that here in the near term, and then as well as obviously the long term.
We can go next to Bruce Beck. Bruce, go ahead.
Brian, how do you balance patience with the negative results of the first 15 games?
I mean, it's part of having experience. It's part of being through the wars, so to speak. And there is that fine line of having patience, as well as recognition and trust of who you are and what you're capable of and what you're meant to be, and allowing that to play out. And clearly understand there's a period of time where that gets tested a lot more than the first 15 games of a season, of a 162 game season. But bottom line, Bruce, we recognize that we're really disappointed in how we've started this season. But we're checking all the boxes and having all the conversations, and our intent is clearly to support our players and staff as we deal with this slow start. I've had many conference calls years gone by where you kind of liken it to you're out at sea and you're in a storm, and you just have to sail through it. You have to batten down the hatches and sail through it, and make sure you cross-check all your in your individual categories, whether it's your infield coach, the outfield coach, the hitting coach, the pitching coach, the front office, the manager, the bench coach, and making sure you're checking every box in your job on a daily basis. Because obviously when you're not, thriving in the category, especially like our offense, that you're capable of, then the smaller stuff gets magnified, and you really need to be as clean as you and buttoned up as you possibly can as you try to sail through that storm, waiting for that offense to find its stride and kick in. And so obviously when a kicked ball on the defensive side, or a throw to the wrong base, or a base running gaff, whenever those things happen under these circumstances, it obviously hurts you even that much more, because it takes you out of a potential winning scenario. And rather than, being in a position to cover those when they do happen, when you're putting 5, 6, 7 runs on the board. So right now we're not. And other aspects of our game are also, subpar, and therefore we own the record we have, and we have some work to do to reverse that.
We go next to Justin Walters. Justin, go ahead.
Hi, Brian. Was wondering what your reaction was to seeing fans throw baseballs on the field, and do you believe this frustration has been building up for a few years now?
No, I don't think. I don't see a correlation to, that terrible game that we played. I guess turn the clock back. First and foremost, if somebody wants to throw something on the field, then then they better expect to be arrested. There's no place in any scenario like that. You can get somebody hurt. It's against the law. And so people obviously better be careful that unless they want to wind up having to deal with some extracurricular stuff that that type of bad activity would warrant. So we had a bad game, and some people chose to do things that they never should be doing. And hopefully those who participated in that recognize that if they didn't get, obviously arrested, then, they got lucky, and people realize moving forward that they have a chance to be arrested or banned from the stadium. There's a lot of different disciplinary levels that can happen that you don't want to be a part of. So, that's to protect other fans, protect the players on the field, the integrity of the game, and just no place for that. In terms of your long-term question, I don't understand, I couldn't really speak to that. It doesn't really make sense to me how a team that obviously is making the playoffs on a year in and year out basis and a legitimate contender for a world championship title. I don't know how that question really is relevant, or it just doesn't make sense to me. So
Go next to Brendan Cuddy. Brendan, please unmute.
Cash, thanks for taking the time today. How would you rate Aaron Boone's performance for these first 15 games?
Well, I think we're all in the same boat with performance. I mean, our record is reflective of our organization. Obviously, Aaron's a piece of that, as am I. And but otherwise, he's doing everything he needs to do. He's cross-checking his, whether it's lineup related, whether it's how do you deploy the troops, on the defensive standpoint. Obviously he spoke to the team after, before the Montgomery start, when we faced Class now the night before, after that tough loss. He obviously engaged the group in a strong way. So he's doing everything he needs to do. And most importantly, supporting these guys, because we trust our players and we trust their abilities, and we trust over the course of time, that will, as it normally does, correct itself. And then obviously, with a lot more certainly games under the belt. So, I think Aaron Boone's doing everything he can do within his power currently.
Thank you.
Marla Rivera, you're next. Go right ahead.
Hi, Cash. What kind of team do you think the Yankees have shown to be through the first 15 games of the season?
Right now, we would be a team that an opponent would want to play, because obviously we're not firing all cylinders. Our strengths obviously are not showing themselves right now. So if you had a chance to catch us right now, you're catching us at the right time through obviously yesterday's games. And we look forward to that changing. But typically it's a very tough lineup to face, to navigate. Typically it's a lineup that controls the strike zone and punishes strikes and spits on balls and wears you out and usually gets a starter out early and gets into the pen and continues that, damage in that passing the baton. Right now, that's not happening. It's happened before, and it happens typically to everyone and anyone. But again, part of this scenario is how you handle it while you're going through it. Purpose of me being on this call right now is it's an off day. Don't want to run and hide from it. Want to acknowledge obviously our disappointing play, but also reinforce that we're not going to have 15 games, have us adjust course. Our message to our players and therefore our fans is we are going to fight our way out of that start, and hopefully by the end of the month you'll see a more reflective record that gets us back online and gets people's confidence back to where it should be. And that's the main purpose of this right now.
And Cash, obviously hindsight is 2020. You've been in this game for a really long time, but knowing what you know now, is there anything you would have done differently, particularly with starting pitching?
No, I mean, again, you go to the marketplace. I know what was available in the winter time, and very comfortable with that decision-making process. We have gotten out of the gate slowly, and our starting pitching obviously has not gone deep, absent of Garrett Cole. Monty's done a nice job, I think, but ultimately, I think our starters will get online and get us that distance and get us that consistently good performance every 5 days. And just hasn't happened on the outset and in their first 2 to 3 starts. And, but looking forward to better days ahead. I certainly am not passing judgment on our offensive, on our starting staff. I think the bullpen's done, what they can do. And we obviously need to run the bases better and shore up our defense as well, to support the other aspects of the club. But I'm not here right now to do anything other than say we're disappointed by how we started this season. We are going to get it corrected. We'll get back online and be where we have to be. But that's everything we're doing right now. We're going to support these guys. They're better than what they've shown. They know it, but they care at the same time. No one here is, if I was speaking for anybody on this squad, which I like to think I am, they're frustrated, disappointed, whether, there's some lack of sleep going on right now. There's some pressing going on right now. And all that is because there's a great deep caring about wanting to do and accomplish what you're capable of accomplishing. And when you fall short of that, there's a lot of tossing and turning going on. But we're going to do everything in our power to avoid, that finger pointing or that, that having those frustrations boil over into something negative, and make sure that we just, rally the troops around each other and try to be there in a strong, supportive way, because right now we've earned any negative criticism, or whether it's boos in the stands. No one, I don't care how bad we've played, no one has earned having things thrown at them on the field on that one particular game. But ultimately the rest of it is, it's part of the process too. When you play bad, you're going to hear about it. When you don't live up to your expectations, or your fans' expectations, or your owners' expectations, you're going to hear it. And it's about doing something about it as you move forward. And that'll hopefully start as early as Tuesday. We've said that many times, but that's what you got to do.
We move to Dan Martin. Dan, go ahead and unmute.
Brian, understanding you said you're not here to make any huge declarations, but what do you think in particular of Hicks's smarts in the struggles that he's had on both sides of the ball?
I think he represents a lot of our start. I think he's an example of many of our players throughout our squad. I mean, we have a 26-man roster, and he is, you insert his name, you can take his name out and throw another name in, and you're going to get the same answer. It's below where he's capable of playing, and that's true of currently most of our roster right now.
Do you think anything? Boone hinted at some changes after the last game. Do you think something like that needs to be done either with the lineup or with the roster?
I mean, as the manager, he always has the disposal to utilize the roster how he sees fit. Clearly there's a lot of different choices to play with, and that's something he deals with and wrestles with his coaching staff on a day in and day out basis. So, if you want to switch things around in the outfield, you certainly have, some other choices to play with if you want. And you can do the same on the infield too. There's a little bit of flexibility there. So, and that goes all the way to the catching spot too. So he's always had that in his back pocket. And I think you've seen him, whether it's playing Guardy one day and Frazier on a day, it's something that it's a lever he has a chance to pull whenever he wants to pull it. So, that's part of his job on when he gets the chance to get a feel for who could benefit from an off day from grinding through a lot or trying too hard or who could benefit from a day or two off, or who, you want to move him up a lineup, down the lineup, all those different things are all part of his, abilities. And that's where he's connected with his playing staff, and those senses obviously will dictate how he chooses to govern, the coming games, but I can't tell you if something like that's going to be happening or not.
Sweeney Murdy, please unmute.
Hey, Brian, we haven't really heard from Hal. Don't have a chance to speak to him much. What has he said to you about what's been going on the last couple of weeks?
He's disappointed, clearly. How obviously he's got a lot invested in this situation, but he's also a fan, just like we all are. And our expectations is to provide great Yankee baseball for those who come to the game or those who are watching the games. And we haven't done that here in the beginning of April, and clearly we got to self-correct that here over the course of time. And we look forward to doing that and proving anybody who's going to predict otherwise, proving them wrong. But we understand why there's some doubts currently and question marks, and there's a lot of head scratching on how the roster is currently performed thus far. But as I referenced before, it's 15 games. And it was 15 games I'd like to forget. The only way I'm going to forget them is doing something about it in the next 15 and seeing how those results look.
You said that you believe in the processes and that you've always been pretty consistent in that. The biggest criticisms that I hear from fans is that a lot of the ways that you're losing games now are pretty similar to the way you've lost postseason games and things that have gone wrong in the last couple of years. What would force you to get away from those processes or think about making changes, or would force Hal to think about making changes?
Well, you're talking about small examples, for instance. So, it's the same squad that dominated a Cleveland team in the postseason. For instance, where obviously I think you're speaking to, hey, you got some great starting pitching like a Glasnow or a Charlie Morton that shut us down in that Tampa series at the eventual American League champions, for instance, in the playoffs last year. But it's the same offensive squad that dominated the Cleveland squad with pitchers like Bieber et al. That were coming at us strong and were someone that you would be fearful of facing in the postseason because how talented they are. So I don't know how to answer your question where 1 week we're able to dominate the highest level of talent pitching that our league had provided, and the next week we lose in game 5 of a 5-game set where could we have moved forward and with a little bit better performance in that series? The answer is yes. It just comes down to playing to the best of your abilities and executing, and if you don't, you're going to go home when you're in those postseason situations. So I think we have great players. I think we assess every opportunity that comes our way within the current confines of our budget, which is larger than obviously most, and always will be. And we assess it, and if we think that something could benefit us, we pursue it and add it to the cast of characters that we're capable that we already have. But the same core players are still here that have wreaked havoc on many a great pitching staffs, whether it's last postseason or prior postseasons. So you got 2020 last, then you turn the clock back to 2019, 2018, where we get all the way to where we wanted to get to. No, but we were capable of it, and we obviously got through a lot of different high-end stuff, and we're still fighting for that. But I don't think personally that I don't think there's something necessarily wrong with how we go about our business. So it's a strong, healthy process that's served us well. But I know at the end of the day, people get judged ultimately on the championship trophy that you either have or you don't. And it's a hard one to get your hands wrapped around. Believe me, I've been a part of a number of them and had teams that were more than capable that fell short, even though they might have been the odds-on favorite going into it. And so we're going to keep taking our shot with what we've got, and we like what we've got. We just don't have it firing on all cylinders right now. And that's certainly acknowledgement by my words. But they are obviously, it's an obvious comment too. We obviously are not playing good baseball.
Andy Martino, please unmute.
Brian, you just spoke to the front office process and mentality there. What about the culture of the team itself? There have been obviously times in your long tenure where you've had concerns about the clubhouse culture, the dynamic, what you're seeing from the players. Not that that's the kind of thing you could correct necessarily in season, but do you see the level of commitment that you want to see, the level of work, effort, and if you are seeing those things, is there a sense of pressure that the players seem to be playing under? Are they having enough fun? Is there something off about what you're seeing, which is a very talented group of players collectively not performing?
I mean, there's no doubt that there's excess players pressure coming when you're playing in the Bronx. Playing in a Yankee Stadium is obviously a challenge. It's a great opportunity. It's meaningful. It's an opportunity to do a lot. To increase your own personal brand, to compete on a yearly basis for a playoff spot and more. And in front of packed houses on the home stands typically and the road. So if you want, to be on national TV as much as possible, have, a fan base as large as ours covering us, the Yankee universe that's worldwide, and come into that challenging scenario, then obviously it's a great opportunity. But yeah, it does come with some challenges and some excess pressure, and we try to alleviate those the best we possibly can. And that's the one thing, I remind many of people along the way where, hey, you gotta light these guys up, or hey, you have to, whether it's the manager, the front office, whether it's ownership, go ahead and blast away, and as if that's going to all of a sudden, jolt them into, oh my gosh, we're playing bad baseball. They know it. They know it more than anybody. The only thing I can tell you is in terms of staying connected, whether it's through my manager, through our coaching staff, or through my touch points when I swing through the clubhouse, is that I know we have a group that's hungry to do good things, but I also know they're not immune to falling trap to pressing, trying too hard, getting emotional, which could lead to, a bad play or a stupid baseball move that gets judged horribly after the fact is because they care too much. Now, I was in the clubhouse yesterday when Jay Bruce spoke to our team. Jay's one of the, we didn't have an opportunity to have Jay long, obviously, and he retired, but he did address the team pregame. And I've had conversations privately with Jay about our culture and our organization and what he perceived from afar, and what in his limited time with the club was in the present. And he spoke from the heart with the players about the good times, the tough times, and staying together and fighting through things. It was a hell of a speech. Obviously we didn't, it's not like you can instantly turn a light switch back into everything positive the next day, but I felt like it resonated with me just sitting in the back of the room. And I know watching how our players are listening to someone who truly loves the game, reminding them about, the game's ups and downs, and trying to stay consistent and staying together while you're going through the tough times. He touched on a lot of stuff that is obvious, but it's good to hear it from someone that has played in a number of different places, has had the respect of his peers, and performed obviously at a high level for quite some time. And on his way out the door, I thought it was a great moment of reminders to us all that, hey, we're still obviously human. We might throw out a roster that's more talented than most, but we're not immune to struggling and having, as Booney talks to, adversities at your doorstep. And, we're going through that mix right now. And so the culture is, if you got the right people involved and, steering it, which I think we do, and if you have the right players that have been through it, which they have, is that you just go through those checklists of when you're going through that storm, of this is what you need to do to get through it and make sure that we stay together while we're getting through it. And at some point, it's going to turn back into things you can forget. Now I'm watching, whether it's the Yes Network, and they might reference when's the last time we had a start like this, and they're mentioning years, 1997, I think it was before yesterday's loss. And that team wound up winning 96 games and stuff like that. And I obviously I've been here, but I don't remember any of those because ultimately it turned. We got back on track. So I can't speak to people about if I could deploy, hey, I remember this and I remember that. We were here this and we were here that. And some things I can remember, but for the most part, those segments that you're going to refer to, how many Yankee teams have started 5-10 and how many Yankee teams did this and whatever the record happens to become here in the end of April and what that reflects on us. There's going to be some really negative stuff. There's going to be some positive stuff that you can try to twist it into. I've lived through a lot of it, and I don't recall most of it because ultimately, why? We got through it. We found a way to be ourselves and be what we're capable of. And I'm not talking about a championship at the end of the journey, but I'm talking about a team ultimately getting back on track. And it's a long journey, and you can wander off your trail like any team. And we're just finding our way back, back on that trail and back to where we need to be.
So those 97 and 05 teams had experienced championship recently, obviously, the ones that got themselves back on track. Do you have any concerns? You talk about the pressure that this group might feel. This core hasn't gotten there yet. And as the years go by, they talk about being frustrated with that. Is that something that you're concerned about, that they might feel too much pressure?
Just pressure generally.
Pressure as a group to accomplish what they haven't yet, and that pressure could undermine their ability to accomplish it.
No, that pressure exists here every year. So that comes with when you get drafted by the Yankees, you get traded here or signed here. That exists every year, no matter whether it's this group or any group. That's just part of our culture and part of our culture that we're proud of, and the fact that we have to address a 15-game bad stretch, speaks to that's not something that's acceptable or accountable. It's something that we want to ever be used to, and that's why I'm obviously sitting, throwing myself out to. All right, we haven't spoke for a while, so let's. It's an off day. A lot of questions that you and your peers are going to have for our fan base, and so I'm here to walk through and talk through, and that speaks to our culture because it's not something that we're accustomed to, and we never want to become accustomed to it. So, at the end of the day, we got to obviously change that narrative, and the only way that does is get better plays, and the only way the better players are going to come is the simple things. We are going to have to go back again. It's the simple stuff. You got to revert back to, making sure you command the strike zone, attack strikes, spin on balls, make sure that you're buttoned up on everything and anything the opposing team is giving you and take advantage of what they're giving you. Be aggressive with your strengths, but don't be passive. And I think at times when you go on a stretch like this, you can be afraid to make mistakes. At the same time, you can be in that stress mode of trying to do too much and get outside of your swing, or throw to the wrong base because you wind up overthrowing because you're trying to make a super play, and next thing you know, you're just making it worse. So we just need to calm ourselves down, go back to the basics on every individual situation, meaning player wise, and control what you can control, and don't try to get outside of yourself because you're good enough as is already, despite what this stretch just showed. And again, as I said, hopefully Tuesday, it'll start as early as Tuesday, but it won't start. If it doesn't start Tuesday, it'll have to start Wednesday, and so on. It's going to get better, but at the end of the day, I know nobody wants to hear that either.
Thank you.
Brian Hope, you have the next question. Please unmute.
Hey, Cash. What gives you confidence that your manager and this coaching staff are the right people to pull you out of this skid?
The trust. I got a lot of trust in the people we have. I've been around the block a long time now and had a number of different managers, a number of different coaches, and they were all faced with the same situation at times and on a year in and year out basis. And, it just comes down to trying to put your players in the best position possible to succeed, give them the best information you can in the simplest terms you can, and then letting them play, staying out of the way and letting them play. When you have a really talented roster, you just want them to be who they are and what they're capable of, and plug and play and let them go. And, so I got full confidence in our staff because I've seen them, work a lot of magic along the way, and impact a lot of players along the way. And so, we just obviously, I know why you have to ask the question, because we're struggling and people want to know if changes are coming and stuff. I also want to say that, I think I'm very proud of the fact that we've had a lot of storms hit along the way, and change doesn't happen without a great deal of thought and effort and reason behind it. And, we're not reactive. And so I don't see us reacting to how to shake the roster up too quickly. And I don't see us reacting to not believing in the staff that we have and the players that we have either. And that's the message to our players. Hey, man, we do believe in you. We know what you're capable of. This is a bad stretch. We're going to get through this together. This isn't us versus them. This is collectively all of us wearing this, and including myself. And, we just have to, we're going to have to find a way to get through it sooner than later so we can avoid having to, feel the way we are right now and having our fans feel the way they are right now.
We'll take a few more. Lindsay Adler, you have the next question.
Hey, Cash, some of the in-game strategy you guys have used, things like opener, sort of platooning Frazier and Gardner and having guys play in a bunch of different positions. Do you feel that you have full buy-in from your players on decisions that make a lot of sense statistically on paper, but may not be how these players are used to playing?
It's a hard question. First of all, I'm not aware of, maybe you are, but I'm not aware of players not having full buy-in. We did get eliminated from the postseason with a team that does all of that and then more. So the fact that, I feel like I remember back in the day, a lot of criticisms over the shift, and now all of a sudden they're looking to ban the shift. And we had to do obviously the opener the other day because our starting staff had not gotten enough length. And so we were forced to, because we needed an arm, we brought up Abreu and which led us to option Herman, who will be back obviously in the coming series. That's the current plan to have him come back in the Cleveland series and, when he's eligible. By doing that, it created the opener. By doing that, it gave us the chance to have Abreu come up, and he saved the game, I think, in the extra inning, when, we were down on that road trip in Florida. And so, there's a lot of moving parts that, some things domino into. We're forced to make a decision here. Gave you some insight on Herman. Obviously, he didn't pitch well, but we needed the extra arm with the off days and the ability to do an opener because of the off days. We pulled that lever, which led us to Abreu, which led us to a win, in that short term, which obviously then, as you move back down the track a little bit further, then we were dealing with that opener where Nelly didn't pitch well, and King obviously then relieved him, and that was not didn't turn out to be the game that none of us wanted to be proud of. And it's just one game and we move on. So anyway, I can't speak to whether players on it. Typically what happens is if you're going well, everybody's loving it. And if you're not going well, people, whether it's fans, press, players, front office, whatever, you start always constantly trying to, if you're part of the decision making, you second guess it, or you'll make sure you cross check it to feel that you're doing what's right. Despite obviously the result that it just came through, and that's part of it too. We're open-minded and willing to make sure that if somebody has a suggestion that makes us better, or something that makes us question ourselves to lead to a different outcome, we'll do that, and we do that all the time. So even though we've gone through this stretch, it doesn't mean that we're not having meetings about this stretch either. With our personnel, to making sure that we're not missing anything, that we're educated on everything that they're seeing and feeling from our staff's perspective, from our players' perspective, and hopefully we're getting some good feedback that gives us an accurate picture of what's going on within that clubhouse and on that field. And if there's something that, comes from that we have to have action off of, we will. We're not afraid of that either. But right now, it just seems to be a stretch of really poor performance right now by a collection of people. So.
And it's Aaron Boone's sort of role to gather that information to take the clubhouse temperature, right? Like that's who you, I guess you would see as that middle person to do this.
Well, obviously, I think the description of them, the reason that they call them the manager is they're managing, a lot. They're managing the games, they're managing their clubhouse, they're managing their players. He's right there on the front line with his staff. But it's it's not just Aaron Boone. You got then the subset. You have the director in terms of the field staff. You have the director, which is the manager. Then you have his management team, the hitting coach with Marcus Timms and PJ, and you got the pitching coach of Matt Blake and Mike Harkey, and so on and so forth. And they're responsible for their areas of expertise and staying further connected and getting more insight, because some people might not be willing to open up to the manager, but they might be willing to open up and share to the bullpen pitching coach or the pitching coach or the hitting coach or the bench coach or whomever. And maybe it's the front office too. I mean, again, I tell you, I swim through into my touch points as well. So, but obviously I rely heavily on our field staff because I live 3 floors up, and I don't live in a clubhouse. I swing through before, I swing through after, and make sure I'm around as much as I need to be, but not, interfering with what the field staff's responsibilities are, because obviously they're charged with managing that situation, and that's why you put a lot of deal of trust in that.
We can take 1 or 2 more. Bradford Davis, you have the next question. Please unmute.
Hi, Brian. Do you see Michael King as a type of starter, or I guess, bulk guy that will perform his best with an opener, or is there hope to have him be a kind of starter that starts games traditionally long term? Well,
I mean, we know typically what happens, coming out of this stuff is a guy like a Michael King or a Nelson. You haven't seen it as much with Debbie, but ultimately when there isn't an obvious slot for them to take, in the rotation, and they get collapsed into usage coming to help us out of the pen, or a spot, start, or being part of an opener. I think Michael King is capable of being a major league starter. To answer your question, I think he's on a mission, to prove that, and he's trying to create opportunities by his performance of making that happen. And if at some point, we feel that he gives us a better option than somebody else, we're not afraid to utilize that. So, but the domino effect, unfortunately, with the way, this moving train works, is that, when he does what he did 2 outings ago, and then this most recent outing, and we, have depleted our, pitching resources, then, unfortunately you're optioning him down because he has that flexibility as part of his profile currently. And then B, we need to get a fresh arm up. So not that we wanted to send him back to the alternate site, but we needed what Krisky could provide in the event that things didn't go right. And so Krisky's now up as a fresh arm for us to utilize and to deploy if Booney sees fit. But I do think that King is capable of being a good starter for us at the big league level. I think he's already provided and proved that he's capable of being a successful pitcher out of our pen. So that's a huge benefit for us. And so, I mean, trust me, I've had enough conversations already where, all right, when's the 10 days expire on King? And hopefully we can get him back here, to assist, when that's the case.
And just zooming out a little bit more, do you see any, or do you believe there are any development trade-offs for using, I guess a younger trained starter as a bulk guy and not turning the first part of the lineup multiple times in the big leagues?
Sorry, can you repeat that real quick? I apologize.
Yeah, sorry about that. Do you think that there are any developmental trade-offs for using like a young, prospecty or, pitcher as a bulk guy when they're a trained starter through the minor leagues, where they're not really turning the first part of a lineup over multiple times? Are there trade-offs developmentally for that, or in your view?
If I think you're asking essentially, is there a benefit to having a starter come through the minor leagues, start at pitching out of the pen at the big league level? is there a developmental benefit from that? Is that what you're saying?
Not exactly. More, is there a developmental loss, maybe even, or I guess, benefit or loss, from not throwing the first inning, not going through the meat of the lineup, as a starter,
I don't know. I mean, ultimately, I think first, what I was touching on, which wasn't really what you've been asking on, was I do know that there's that old tradition of, hey, there is a benefit, and I still even believe Pettit came out and pitched out of our pen, maybe initially coming up from the minor leagues, but ultimately, it's tough to ask for somebody to do something they're not used to doing, but yet, when you have a need, you have to drop somebody in the deep end of the pool regardless and hope they can help you, even though you're putting them in the deep end of the pool and hoping they can swim a little bit. So in theory, you never want to bring a starter up and then have them pitch out of the pen for the first time at the big league level. But the way the schedule and the train works, sometimes you're forced to do that. I don't know. I really don't have a good answer about, is there a developmental loss from ultimately not having, for instance, Michael? It sounds like you might be asking, would we have been better off if Michael King started that game instead of Nelson? And was there a developmental loss, by not having, in theory, a pitcher like a King face the front end of the lineup? I don't know. I think ultimately when Aaron Boone and Matt Blake and Mike Harkey and Mendoza, for the most part, decide who to deploy and as the starter or the opener, and then who to back them up with, it just comes down to, as they're looking at the matchups, how they think, again, as they manage the situation, they're trying to put the players in the best position to succeed. And that's a comparative of this versus that, and Nelson's qualities when he's at his best, and King's qualities when he's at his best. And unfortunately, that day, I don't think anybody was at their best that day for us. So I don't know if I don't think I answered your question, and I apologize because I don't have an answer for it.
No, I appreciate that. Thank you for walking me through your thinking.
Take a final question from Christy Acker. Christy, go ahead.
Hey, Brian, just some housekeeping here at the end. Do you have any clearer of an idea of when Severino might be progressing back, Zach Britton and Voigt?
I mean, I don't have any specific dates yet. Zach Britton is on the 60, so he's not back till the end of May. So June 1st is probably it's either May 30th or June 1st is the first eligible date, regardless of wherever he's at. And then Luke Breut's doing great. I don't have a time frame yet, but everything he's going through right now is going well. And then and Sevy's doing everything he needs to do, but I don't have dates for you about when we expect them to return. I know in Voigt's case it was sometime in May. Sevy's case, we've always said the summer, whether that's June, whether it's July, whether it's August, all remains to be seen. But they're doing what they need to be doing, and they're in good hands with their training staffs. And now I see Luke and I see Zach. I have, we have Sevy down in Tampa, so I haven't seen Sevy, but I get the reports on a daily basis.
With Severino, do you expect to have minor league games for him to be able to pitch in before he comes back?
Oh, no question.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you.
Cash, thank you for the time. We appreciate it. Everybody, thanks for joining as well. Enjoy your afternoons, and we'll see many of you at the ballpark tomorrow. Thank you.
Take care.
Regresamos en breve, no te muevas. Regresamos en breve, no te muevas.